Welcome to another episode of Artsy AF Podcast. Thanks for being here. Today, I'm interviewing Anthony Thogmartin. Anthony is a multi-instrumentalist, music producer, and teacher. He's also a big-time planetary advocate, as you will come to hear. He's founding member of the band Papadosio, produces music in his solo project EarthCry, and has an online Ableton course on his YouTube channel called Seed to Stage. In this episode, we talk about consciousness, surviving as a band in the music industry for 15 years, the effects of social media and how to navigate the terrain, modular synthesis, and we discuss his newest body of work with EarthCry called Identity Mitosis, a concept album of sorts that seeks to convince the listener to identify more with the planet. Anthony has a lot of insight into many topics, and it was a lot of fun chatting with him today. So please check out his work. I've got the links in the description, and I don't really have anything else to say, so... Oh wait, I do have one thing to say. What you're listening to right now is called Superiority Simplex. It's an EarthCry tune off this album, Identity Mitosis, which I just mentioned. So go give it a listen, go check it out, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
So has this is Koali now part of this too, or what's the
No, but thanks for asking. He helped last time with video for the podcast itself.
I see. Okay.
And the whole 5-star rated video that we made together.
It was 6-star, I would say.
6-star. It was literally just one day I was listening to his new album and just painting and, you know, being high and feeling good. And I heard that song and I thought, man, this just like reminds me in a good way of like feel good 90s sitcom intro music. And I had this whole thing, like not exactly how it came out, but like some things flashed through my head and I was texting him and we were just like, all right, let's make a video. So
as days go by.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and we found the Full House font for it and everything, so that was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But yeah, man, thanks for coming on the podcast. Do you mind if I record video?
You can record video if you'd like. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'm covered up from woodworking.
Oh,
but...
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me find my notes here. This is the first time I've done it on a computer in a while, and I feel way more prepared than ever before, so that's good.
Oh, great, because I'm completely unprepared, so hopefully you'll make up for my lack.
I mean, that's usually how I roll, though, too, is just being like, we'll talk about whatever, I guess. But I think in order to feel good about it, I kind of have to have a bit of preparation going on, you know?
That's good. That's good. I support
Yeah.
that.
Well, all right, dude. So, I guess, how has your virus break 2020 been? I guess, besides Aaron, you're the first musician or producer I've talked to about COVID and all the things that happened therein. So, what's changed for you? You know.
Well, Melissa and I moved out to the woods. So, and this was the craziest part is that the day that we moved was the day the stay at home order happened, right? So
Oh, wow.
it was like Are we? Whoa, this is crazy. And then like, so we can kind of see Asheville from where we are,
Yeah.
and it kind of feels like I've been watching all of this go down, like with a periscope, like a pirate on the deck of a ship. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
watching society, like, reformulate itself, and it's like, center of whatever. And it's been crazy because I mean, and also I should say at the same time, what we have connected with is what I used to feel, like, yeah, every single day, if you live in the woods long enough, you start to notice that every day there's a different seed that drops, a different leaf that changes color, a different, like, you start to notice these events, and they're daily, and sometimes they're even multiple things happen in one day. A certain bird will leave or come back, things like that. And so we've really, like, I don't know, like, on some level, I feel almost bad about how this is the life that we've been trying to cultivate for a really long time. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel sort of bad that, we're not in the shit with everybody else, like, in some ways, but we're in the ideological shit because, like,
Right. Yeah.
the component that's come along with all of this has been crazy to witness. And, it's done all kinds of things to me personally.
Yeah.
Uh, everything from, let's see, everything from, like, questioning how I have been either an ally or not when it comes to what's happened with, the POC issues, and then on the other hand, the coronavirus thing, like me calling into question where I stand, and like me realizing that there's like this notion that you have to say where you stand, and that you're not allowed to be shades of gray. You're either like, a complete and another utter, like, what would you say, like a complete and utter, like, conspiracy theorist, or you're bowing down to the MSM overlords. And you know what I mean? You can't be like skeptical, or else you're, and you can't be like super wearing a mask all the time. Like, you can't just be like a person. You have to either be insane or insane.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah. There's almost no place to stand, it seems like.
yeah, I mean, and so I've been trying to be as stalwart in the middle of everything as possible. You know what I
Same.
mean? Because I don't know. Like, I feel like that might make the most sense, but I'm a mask wearing American, you know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
and
yeah,
I'm
dude.
also a redneck now because I drive my truck in the woods,
Oh, nice.
So
So have you
yeah,
guys, it sounds like you all have been kind of more connecting to nature a little bit, or maybe a
100%.
lot bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been fantastic. I mean, for her, obviously, like, making nature inspired art has been, her primary focus this whole time. And being around, like, you've visited here before, like, and you're from the East, like
Yeah.
how every single week there's a new, like, dominant mushroom, that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
appears. And the Chanterelle week was especially crazy here, and, like, it really, she puts those in her art, and, like, it's just cool to see her, like, in and around, and, like, her life wrapping around these things. And it's influenced my music. This is a pretty prolific year, I think, for a lot of artists, but we won't see how prolific it is until
Mm-hmm.
next year. I feel like everybody, visual, audible, everybody's got this huge body of work they're probably developing right now, but we won't see any of it. So we think that COVID's been this, like, huge brakes applied kind of situation. I don't see that at all. You know what I mean? I see, like, just an explosion of art happening. We just don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, what's that, saying or pseudo saying, something like bad times make for great art? Or
Yeah.
maybe I just made that up. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's been so much good music to come out this year. And I know, like what you were saying, like a lot of, I think music, especially more than visual art, we'll be seeing that in the next year. Because visual art, we kind of release, like how you did with Identity Mitosis, like singles at a time. It's
Mm-hmm.
unless you're working with big galleries, and you can't share each single you put out until the gallery show. Um, yeah, I think that it's been my most prolific year for sure. Uh, yeah, I
I
don't know.
think
Have
so too. I mean, like, the fact that I see you pop up on ye old feed, like, I mean, a lot more than normal. That's, I don't know, you've done an impressive amount of releases this year.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with not going to so many events. to be honest, in this weird way. It's that weird double-edged sword where I miss it, but I'm getting so much work done. And yeah, I don't know. Everything's just been turned upside down, but I think it's a good thing for artists, maybe.
It can be.
Yeah,
It certainly can be. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, we're getting it from all angles at this point. It's like, on one hand, a lot of us on the tour industry needed
yeah.
for our sanity to pump the brakes because I mean, just like everything else, like I'm sure you're experiencing this, where if you don't release art every month or something, then you fall by the wayside, or at least maybe you think you do. Like it's all maybe it's all in your head, maybe it's not. In the
Yeah,
same way with touring, if you stop touring, you think that that oh, the band's over, no one cares. It's
yeah.
like it's the end of an era, all this other stuff. When really, I mean, I don't even know if that's true or not, but all of us had that mentality, and so
Hmm.
not just the musicians, but the tour crews,
The
the
build
stay at home
crews, yeah.
managers, like the entire music industry needed this for our hearts, but in our mental health. But what we don't, our pocketbooks are like, hey, wait a minute here,
Yeah,
So
right.
it's like I don't know. It's like you give some, you take some. I do see this though as like really for the the
Long
mental health.
term, better.
It's we needed this,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I
in some
agree.
ways.
I agree totally. Kind of to that point. So Papadosio, you guys have been around for what, almost 15 years now? Close to it.
2006 was our first
2006. So
show.
yeah, almost 15 years.
Yeah,
Um, so to me, like sitting kind of more on the sidelines from the music industry, it seems like for a band to survive that long nowadays is kind of it's more rare definitely than it used to be. But
it's true, man.
how have you guys made that happen? I don't. I know that's a very broad question, and it might not. It's kind of a weak question, but
I don't think that's a weak question. I think that that's I don't know. And I'm not sure if that's me being old or if that's me being realistic. Like
yeah.
on some level I'm like how on earth can one artist that is a single producer make it nowadays?
Hmm.
That, financially. Like how can they support themselves? Like and then you put into the equation how could five
Five.
musicians
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
this point how do you do that? Like like how does Turquoise do it? They're like
Yeah. Yeah.
9 or 10
Same.
people. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like, it's so unfathomable to me how to do it now because I mean, I think that there's a bad word in the music industry that no one wants to utter, but
Hmm.
the truth is that we are experiencing classic oversaturation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people that have entered this world are people that are looking for the lifestyle, not people that
Yeah.
feel like they have to make art or they're going to lose their fucking minds. Like, and that's where I'm at. I if I don't make things, I start to slip and
Yeah.
I get irritable. I shout at people. I do all kinds of things that I know I don't want to represent, and that's when I don't express myself. And I feel that the only way I can express myself is through music. But you have a lot of people entering the scene that see the tour bus and the the
Attention
the
and
sex,
yeah.
the all the money, like they see that and they that's what they want. And so you notice the YouTube, for example, is inundated with how to make it to the top, doing this thing, 15 secrets to get your, whatever. And it's like, yo, that I hate to break up the party, y'all, but like,
Yeah.
we're you make art to create something and to keep your head right and to try to offer something to people, like it's not always about like how fast you can rise to the top because we notice what happens when people rise to the top too quick. You get your classic, you know, drugged out, like burned out, like, kid with the mansion. And then, 2 years after that, he's not making music anymore. He had to go to rehab,
Yeah.
like all the other things occur. And it's because there's got to be this like slow burn situation. Now, I should say that we would have absolutely burnt out, done way too many drugs, and did all kinds of horrible things had we grown too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we were specifically prepared for this any more than anyone else. I think we were a bunch of idiots. In fact, recently we were reminiscing about one time we drove all the way back from New Orleans, having been up for 2 days doing all kinds of who knows what substances.
Yeah.
And then one moment we were like, let's drive back. We can do it. We totally can do it. And looking back, that was perhaps one of the dumbest things that we have ever done as a band. You know what I mean? And like I look back on that now, and that wouldn't even be close to what I would decide to do. But I think that we were just at the very top level. We were just lucky. Like that's all I
Nice.
can say about that. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, it's because we're the best band. Like no, listen
Right.
to us back then. We weren't the best band. We were like the underlings of like we were like the I don't know. Like I don't want to like downplay it too much because a lot of people really like that early music, but it's more like people got familiar with it and it spoke to a time. It
Mm-hmm.
somehow like worked and we got lucky. We committed those songs to tape that people felt were worth it. But there are other little things that we did. One thing we did is we said we're not going to say Anthony wrote this song, Sam wrote this song, Rob wrote this song. We're not going to do that. We're
Mm-hmm.
not going to split the money in a way that isn't equal. We're not going to do any of that. We're not going to we're just going to be a team about this from A to Z. And that's been our kind of like stalwart credo kind of thing. And it's funny, playing a show and looking out into the audience and knowing that almost everyone in the crowd makes more money than you, the sound guy, the entire, like, all those people are making more money than you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what you're making is memories, and there's this camaraderie that came through that. And I think that decision was one of our better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
What has kept us together this whole time, other than that, I don't know. Like Mike is a great, like our drummer Mike is a great, he's a great guy, and anybody that meets him
Right.
loves him.
Right.
But he's also our glue. Like he always takes these escalating horrible fights we have, and he brings them down into the place they need to go. I don't know. Like thanks to him, thanks to the support from everybody. Really, I mean, if nobody cared, we'd probably be like, yeah, I don't care either. But
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
people caring, and it keeps you going. I'm sure. Like when
Oh,
people
absolutely.
react to what you write.
Yeah, absolutely. I like need it for the podcast. Uh, but you were talking about luck earlier, and I actually have a question about luck, which is pretty serendipitous, I guess. Um,
Okay.
so, everybody talks about hard work and talent all the time, and most people nowadays are just talking about hard work. But I mean, you can definitely work your fingers to the bone and still not make it, Um, because I just feel like there's these small moments in time or situations or people you meet that steer you or kind of happen to guide you when you look back on them, you know. Do do any of those lucky moments come to mind for you? I know it's hard to kind of reminisce on the spot and be like, it was this moment right here, but um,
This moment, man.
yeah.
Um, I can definitely say that watching my heroes do what they do, at least I think put me in the right headspace. Like
Hmm.
I recently was talking about having seen David Grisman play with his amazing 5-piece uh, jazz outfit. That I think I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, I'm sure they would still be playing. Like that guy is like,
Yeah,
he's an ancient wizard and he's still, and just watching that he enjoyed himself, even though he could absolutely retire at this point, kick
right.
his feet up. He's done. He doesn't need to do anymore, but he does it because he enjoys it. And watching multiple artists throughout these years like enjoy what they do, I kind of realized that I have to write music that I enjoy writing, or I'm going to be on stage one day and be like, I don't enjoy this. Hey, everybody,
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, but I don't enjoy this. And I don't want to say that. I want to, that's why I think that you get, you get these albums and you get these art pieces that artists make that people are like, that's weird.
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
they associate you with everything you've done up until that point. Whereas you're changing, right? You are
Absolutely.
morphing and constantly moving. And I guess if I could say anything, watching my heroes do what they do and enjoy themselves, even if I didn't think their record that they just put out was that great. Watching their expressions, their jovialty at like delivering the art is, I realized, a lot more important than it might seem,
Oh yeah.
because it was what keeps things going. Like, think about late Jethro Tull. Like, that band got weird, man. Like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, and at the same time, you watch any of their shows, you know, you
They're
see
having
at
a
least Ian
blast.
Anderson's having a great time. You know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, so that like enjoying it and loving it is just a powerful buffer to any sort of external like chatter or even your own internal chatter about it. Like you just love what you do.
you do your
And
best to
it,
love what you do, at least.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. And I know, okay, COVID obviously a hot topic. I'm going to bring it back to like social media because
Okay.
we're all seeing, how what social media really is, I guess. The business model therein that is like keeping people pissed off and confused and inundated with way too much information. Um, but yeah, I think like nowadays we have so many voices coming at us. We can literally hear the opinions of potentially every person with a social media account on the planet. Um, so, are there any other ways that you kind of buffet your art from that, or do you? I noticed you're pretty active on Facebook, but do you kind of take breaks? How do you handle that? How do you handle social media? I guess.
Not well. I
Yeah,
don't think anybody does.
I
But
don't
I
think
mean,
so either.
I guess I've only been relatively active there because I still see, you know, it's so easy to say, okay, this has zero value because of what it does, right?
Mm,
When it can also do whatever you want it to in some ways. If you are
sure.
willing to, any social media, I mean, regardless, like, I'm not, I would like to be better at Instagram, but I'm not. Like, the nature of how you know, I guess I could be better. And Melissa's really good at it, so she could definitely help me out. But at the end of the day, like, I like the utility of being able to say things in a long format. So
Yeah,
I guess I would say that my favorite media of all is long form media like this, like podcasts.
yeah. In a way, this is
And
social media, right?
I guess it is, and I guess that, and it also is, at least at one point, was the fastest growing style of consumed media in America. I remember
Right.
reading that, and that was kind of mind blowing, and actually really, really makes me feel better about a lot of things, because at the end of the day, when you have like Twitter, for example, which I tried for a long time and couldn't do,
Mm-hmm.
when you have to say things that quickly, no no nuanced concept could ever be delivered, right? So
Right.
if you have to tweet things really short, you end up falling into the easy to fall into pit of rhetoric, right? And then
Right.
rhetoric becomes this thing where you boil a very complex, nuanced topic down into a nonsensical, almost like, be like getting rid
Cartoonish.
of what the
Yeah.
meaning was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what I find still you can do from time to time is glean a lot of useful things if somebody can say 5 or 6 paragraphs. You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
someone
for
can
sure.
say, I mean, and then I have, I secretly, no one knows this, but I just eliminate pretty much anybody that says anything that isn't offering helpful things. I'm on my feed, and
Yeah.
my social media feed for the most part is pretty fun to read.
Sure.
I follow
Sure.
people that offer art mainly, and then I also follow people that happen to offer things of value. You know what I mean? And those are at least things that I appreciate. You know what I mean? And so I know that to a certain degree, I'm limiting the amount of voices available to me. But I also, anybody that is diametrically opposed to almost everything that I say, I don't turn those people off either, because I want to know
Yeah, of
what's
course.
what's bubbling out there. You know what I mean? If somebody has an opinion that's diametrically opposed to mine, likely there's some truth in there,
Right.
because likely it's my blind spot. And you can fight the algorithm in some ways, and you can tailor that algorithm into this thing that like aggregates information in a way that doesn't harm you. And
Right.
on the other angle of this, look, man, at the end of the day, you can see my strategy. Right before I have a release, I say something to the order of cue Trump, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, it just whatever. And then everyone's paying attention. Then you drop your
Yeah.
record and move on. You know what I mean? It's just you're playing the game. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like, hopefully, what you say leading up to that, even though it's hot topic stuff, you say
Mhm.
something of value. You say something that people can use, something that
Yeah.
hopefully makes them feel better. You know, at the end of the day,
Absolutely, yeah.
if you can offer at the same time, you know how you win? You offer outrage, right, with your
Yeah.
first paragraph, and you offer remediation further on down. You know what I mean? That's always been
Well,
my like move. You know.
yeah. Well, it's like I'm pretty sure you saw that David Attenborough biography documentary
The documentary, yeah, I
where
cried
where
multiple times.
I did too. I did too. It was, I mean, heart-wrenching. But then like he sort of brings you back into like the hopeful space at the very end of it. Um that's just what it reminded me of when you were talking about that just now. So
It's
you're kind of doing a combination of like curating and then listening to someone or some people who just think way differently than you. I think that's a great strategy, honestly. Like a lot of times I find that if my initial reaction to a person is like, I don't really like that person, then it's usually something that I haven't fully like, you know, mastered within myself, I guess. Like if if you think someone's lazy or you think they, you know, sound unintelligent, it's mostly because you're insecure with your laziness and whatever, unintelligence. Um, so yeah, I think it's good to keep the valve open, but also curate because there are trolls out there, as we all know.
sure.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like you witness that these algorithms are designed primarily to make money.
Oh
and
yeah.
and because they're primarily designed to make money, then the fruit, right? I don't mean to get like all esoteric on it, but the
No, we
fruit that
understand
this tree is
metaphors here.
going to bear
Yeah.
isn't going to be good fruit. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it encourages outrage and it encourages people to talk to each other in a way that they wouldn't normally ever talk to each other. It encourages all kinds of nonsensical behavior. But at the same time, it's a public forum, and it's
Right.
the most, at this point, frequented public forum, which I wish that like Wikipedia, for example, was, or like, you know, there are other social media that tend to show the truth more often. Like
Mm-hmm.
Reddit's a great example because
Yeah.
when things are untrue, they get downvoted. When
Yeah.
things, and people will say, well, that's censorship. Well, actually, how about it's just true? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bulk majority of people, when they're using a platform, if you say something not true and there's a way to get it out of view or in view, I mean, that might be the best possible fact
Yeah.
check or way that we have outside of, I mean, like I remember like you couldn't quote the internet in school. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you couldn't use that. And I think that was a really intelligent way to look at life. But now, because we're challenging our institutions to rise to a new level of our scrutiny is rising, right?
Right.
Like because we're challenging our institutions, and our institutions in some way, I mean, like I believe it that our institutions have in some way let us down. Like higher education is so necessary and so important for our sciences and for
Yeah.
our medical thing and stuff like that. But at the same time, a lot of these colleges, man, they are just raking in the cash. You know what I mean? I see that they have a lot of overhead, but man, there are so many unnecessary college educations being doled out, and I happened to somehow have like made it around that. And to not be in school debt is almost like an exception to the rule in America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so our institutions have, kind of let us down in some ways. So I understand the counter arguments. But what I've noticed on social media is that if you instantly subscribe to the counter argument to the mainstream narrative, for example,
Yeah.
and you don't critically think about what that narrative is trying to sell you, and for example, like Q, which is trying to sell you a a way to think about the world, a politically charged direction to
Right.
take, and all this other stuff. If you don't look at that with the same critical mind, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like you just jumped the tracks to the other side and then just like waited for the first piece of bait, to
Right.
be yanked out of the water. You didn't think about the fact that there might be constant agendas pulling for your attention in every single direction.
Yeah.
And I mean, meanwhile, us artists over here are I feel like most artists that are intellectually honest
Hmm.
don't know what exactly to say
Yeah.
and don't know how to navigate the situation in a healthy, collected way, because there's so much less that we know now than we've ever known before. There's so much less clarity
Yeah.
to the facts than there ever have been before, because the what's the word, what's the term, the information ecology, to quote that Schmachtenberger guy,
Hmm.
is polluted,
Yeah.
right? And so we're trying to make art that says, "Hey, we're just holding up the mirror to society, man."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but we don't know how to hold the mirror. Like, we're like, wait,
Am I getting a good reflection here, or is this a little off? I don't
or
really
am I
know.
crazy?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I think also one of the problems is that, like, you know, we can spot someone trying to sell us a product or service, but I think we're a little bit worse at spotting someone trying to sell us an idea or an ideology or a political movement or whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's my whole thing has just been like, I don't know what to say, of course, but like I know that like Trump sucks, and so does every other president, basically. But Trump sucked a lot more, and that's like the end. I'm not even going to try and articulate anything like on the fly about it. It's just so it's too hot, I guess.
I
Um,
gotta say that at least at this point, the best possible scenario has occurred, and that's that we can finally talk about these things
right?
without the context of having to bring Donald Trump into the conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
That because he's vastly and very quickly dwindling in terms of his, like,
Importance or
effect on
attention.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to. That was something that like blew my mind, that you couldn't talk about issues without bringing him up. Like you couldn't talk about why, I
Right.
mean, I'm still over here like I'm sorry, I still haven't caught up. I'm still just like so blown away that this is even a talking point, that
Right.
he
Yeah.
has anything to do with American anything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the thing that I don't know if I'm ever gonna like totally compute that happened. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right. It's
and
it
so
so doesn't compute, and it's like, uh, you know, yeah, he was outside of politics, but that's the guy. Like that is your outsider. Like, ugh, I don't know. Um, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I
So
don't want
anyway,
to
we
get
can we
too.
can move on because
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
guess what? He's out of here.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Exactly. But one thing I wanted to say is I've had this idea for a little while that if our normal social media was more like this, where you make a post, but then in the comments, the only way you can comment is through video comment. And I think that that would make people a lot more self conscious in this good way to where they wouldn't be like cursing at someone for no reason or calling people names necessarily. I don't know. Let's build it. Um,
isn't that sort of like TikTok in some ways? Like, I mean, I understand that TikTok is more like getting like a fishing rod and putting like, like your boiled down most like manic best possible representation of yourself and throwing it into the ocean of tags
yeah.
and hoping to like snag something.
Yeah.
Like it'd be sweet if like there was like a tree of threads, right? And like every time you went somewhere, like that tree of threads like breaks off into another tree of threads. And that, I mean, essentially I'm yet again describing sort of what Reddit is,
Right.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
uh attributing a face. I think that's the interesting difference, is that we identify yourself on social media. You get mad, and then or you say something incorrect, and then you have attached your
Your
whole
whole
like,
thing. Yeah.
social credibility
Yeah.
to saying some nonsense, whatever that you said.
Right.
And we have a lot of trouble with, a good friend of mine says we are obsessed with being right. And I
Mm,
think that
yeah.
he's really onto something there. We're
He's
so
right.
obsessed with being righteous and correct.
Hmm.
I mean, I get scared to even say anything on the mic anymore
Yeah,
because
yeah.
first of all, it's the rhetoric thing. I don't want to just spew rhetoric. So
Yeah, yeah.
I could either say one thing like I love everybody and that's good enough, or I could say another thing which would take me 2 minutes to say, and then people would be like, "Shut up, you're preaching." So it's like,
Yeah.
I second guess that. Like, like how do you even address an audience anymore without falling into rhetoric or like, you know, or saying something really ridiculous and oh yeah, well Papadosio said this, whatever, and it's like I don't know,
Yeah.
man. It's
Yeah.
truly an interesting time to be a person.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's nice though. I mean, for all I have this weird, I guess we all deal with it, but it's like how do you hold in one hand like being grateful for all that we have right now while still like wanting so much more, you know? And like knowing that we could do so much better. Uh I don't know. It's a fun thing to talk about or think about too. Um
We had a good camping trip recently where
mhm.
uh and I got to say that what keeps me sane I think the most is tromping through the woods, having deep conversations with my friends. I live a pretty technological life that is juxtaposed very intensely by nature, right? So it's like work on the computer, like freak out, do all this crazy stuff, and then go into the woods and lose it all, and then
Mhm.
go back. And if I can keep that going in a healthy ratio, it's very difficult when it's cold like this, but
Yeah.
if I can keep that going in a good ratio, I get this like this. There's a health there. There's like a recovery period, um, and so I don't mean to go too far in that direction,
Go
but
for it.
bring up these hot topics and we
Mhm.
talk about them in a way where there's sometimes there's like arm over the shoulder with your buddy and you're sharing and like there's this connection there that like that is so much more healthy for me to not instead of like arguing feverishly with my fingers. I'm able to connect with somebody and I really think that you're onto something, at least in that like I'm looking at you and I see, oh, here's my buddy, like
Yeah.
I miss him. I don't get to go to Colorado as much as I'd like to. And I feel this warmth. And I would, even if you said something like, dude, I mean, have you heard about this, like, this pedo ring that, like
Yeah.
Biden has been,
This
if
vaccine's
you,
not real, right?
I would be less inclined to be like, you know, you're an asshole. But, I'd be more
Right.
inclined to be like, hey man,
Come on,
like,
dude. You'd be
or
like,
whatever. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I would just be less of a douche about it because like
Right.
I realize that I am a process and you're a process. A person is not what they say.
Yes.
What we say is only what we say when we say it.
Right.
A week later you could have come up with something else and you could have felt a different way and you're just you're doing your best. I really feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people, even though I do think a lot of people are potentially intellectually lazy
Mhm.
and that it's easy to just sink into the story that someone wants to tell you and attach to it because we're so uncomfortable with not knowing what's happening. We're so uncomfortable with the idea that we're not sure about what's going on that we attach ourselves to these stories. And we attach ourselves to the idea that I'm not friends with that guy because he is crazy or he is whatever. Actually, he's just or she's just saying where they're at in this moment. And that's all. We're
Yeah.
processes, not what we say. And
Right.
what we say is just a result of what we are in that moment.
Yeah. Dude, I'm right there with you. I think our notions of the self are pretty wrong most of the time. In terms of being like a solid singular self with X amount of opinions and ideas or tastes, whatever, versus like you were saying, being a process. Um, and yeah, we're definitely afraid of the unknown. I mean, that's for damn sure as humans, like I think that's why, we're so afraid of death. Some people have fears of like, I'm kind of afraid of the water, honestly. Like I can swim, but like, I don't know. I don't want to be diving around and stuff. Um, but so getting back to that concept of self, um, this kind of dovetails. I'm gonna try and make it dovetail. I'll probably end up just kind of like hammering a nail into a piece of a sentence here, but so identity mitosis. I'm just gonna pivot right to that.
Okay.
Um, to me, it seems like with that series, I love it. By the way, I ended up finally like really watching all the videos one by one past couple of nights.
Oh,
Bravo,
awesome.
first of all, thank you. And but to me, it's like a concept album. Would you kind of define it as that?
Yeah, I the the themes came from walks in the woods with my friends, and I just was like, I'm witnessing life in the way that, in the context of being a person who is perpetually feeling guilty about everything, and I'm trying
Yeah.
to learn how to navigate that, and I don't know if I've figured it out yet, but I every single day I learn about some insane thing that we do
Mm,
that I didn't realize that we do. Like, we we ship our trash to other countries, right? That's what
yeah.
we do as America in America. We just ship our trash to other countries. And recently our other countries have been like,
We can't
yeah, we
have
don't want your
anymore.
trash anymore.
Yeah.
So like now, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
and and we live in such extravagance without like the understanding of what we do, and also that there's so much nuance to what it means to be ecologically friendly. Like I learned recently, I think in your state they outlawed plastic bags, which on the
Definitely
or
in some
in some
counties.
some places, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I learned recently that that actually has a worse impact on the environment than using them, because it's so heavy to transport paper bags, and because
And
and
it
then
weighs
also
down the
to
trucks and they burn more gas and
and
sorry.
it takes a lot more carbon to make the plastic bags, the reusable plastic bags. It
Uh-huh.
takes something like 10 times or 100 times the amount of carbon, or no, it's something crazy. It's like some really like 800 times the amount of carbon to make a reusable bag. And so every fifth day when someone forgets their bag, they buy a reusable bag. And at the end of the day, you have to be so intelligent about how you're eco-friendly that like we
Yeah.
need to be educated more than ever before about how to be a person. And like every single time that guilt comes up, i I realized, I was like, if I'm going to navigate this in a useful to people way, I have to figure out how to do this artistically,
Yeah.
or else I'm going to just be a disgruntled old man, you know
Yeah.
saying ridiculous stuff on the internet, and also at the same time being an equal perpetrator in the act of doing the thing that I am not trying to do. So what I realized is that, like, in order to get the kind of overarching concept and context for what it means to be an ecologically sound person, I think that we have to zoom out really far.
Yeah.
And so the first scene you see in the first episode is the Earth itself getting inundated with all this technology. And then you find out that this story is taking place in a supposed future where humans didn't make it.
Right.
And the only thing that was left was this entire like artificial general intelligence that had all these little encapsulated robots, and they left the Earth because there was nothing more to do. And they were out seeking everything and trying to figure out the rest of the world. But one of them got left behind, and its job was to study the Earth if and when the ecologic system got back to like homeostasis, right?
Hmm.
And so this has actually happened every single time that we've had a horrible situation happen, a mass,
Extinction.
a mass extinction period.
Yeah.
We've the Earth has come back and formulated some new manner of like symbiotic relationships and
Yeah.
a thriving ecosystem. And so there's no reason to assume that we could ever do enough damage to the Earth that that wouldn't happen eventually. Now,
Right.
we could definitely do enough damage, and we could do lasting damage, that we could turn our planet, for example, into Venus, which, if you're familiar with what happened on Venus, basically the carbon went so crazy that standing on the surface of Venus, the atmospheric pressure is so high that you'd be flattened like a pancake because of
Mm.
how much carbon is released, And who knows, maybe Venus was a Garden of Eden back in the day. I can't really be sure.
Yeah.
But so all that, garbly-gook aside, I tried to create a situation where a relatively ideal thing happened in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What we discovered and what we became was an encapsulated seed, right? And so the Earth keeps calling the AI little seed because the idea is that when the Earth comes to this dying period, when you watch a plant, right? You watch a plant like go to seed, it starts to wilt and everything. It's so sad. It's like, oh, like
Yeah.
usually in the fall you see it in nature. You see like burrs start to appear on plants, and you're just like you're kind of sad.
Sorry.
Like it's like
Yeah.
at the end of an era, right?
Uh-huh.
But I think that the planet Earth. Why would we assume that planet Earth is anything other than just a plant, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
like we get to this degree where there's all this information and there's all this radiation, and if you see a heavenly body in space, the science around, if you start to see radiation ramp up around a star, you know that it's about to go supernova. You know that something's about to happen. And so if you look at the Earth, that's what's happening now. Like a lot of radiation, a lot of radioactivity, and we're that's what we're living through. We're living through the Holocene, the end of the Holocene, and we're living through what could be considered an extinction period. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of being sad about it, what we can do is we can learn from it. And that's what I tried to do with this identity mitosis series. I want to shift what the reason that it's called that is I wanted to shift the identity from me being Anthony walking on Earth and feeling bad about what I'm doing to me identifying with the Earth, that I came from the Earth and all this technology is the Earth.
Right.
And that instead of vilifying my behavior, what I can do is I can navigate it intelligently and realize that polluting is just making my life more difficult. It's making the biodiversity go down. It's doing all these things that I don't have to attribute emotion to, but what I can attribute to it is that there's a better way to do this, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe a way that we can move forward without having to go through what happens in the actual story here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a that's a beautiful synopsis of that. Thanks for giving me like the backstory there too. Um
Yeah, cool.
so but it also and this is where kind of like what you were saying just now about you, Anthony, as just like a person living in a society versus coming from the earth and realizing that like everything's interconnected. And this is kind of where I was trying to dovetail the concept of the self and what I see in identity mitosis as kind of a the, the hard question of consciousness or the hard problem of consciousness, right? You've got, I guess, if there were a spectrum of theories of mind, like on one side you'd have complete, reductionist materialism, and then on the other side you'd have kind of like a panpsychism, a kind of like mind and everything. Consciousness is all pervasive. Where like, I guess if you were on this side, the panpsychic side, you would think the consciousness is kind of like the signal from the audio, and then like everything else after that is whatever your amp, your pedals, all that kind of thing. And if you're on this side, you think that consciousness emerges out of, I mean, I guess if you're far enough this way, you think it emerges out of like the human brain and maybe a few others. And the feeling I get from watching Identity Mitosis is that you fall very squarely on this side of the spectrum, on the consciousness being all pervasive and being first, being kind of like the first thing. I know I just rambled there for a little bit, but you got anything for me on that?
Yeah, I do. Within the name, so mitosis means when cells are, they're splitting off, right?
Multiplying, right?
And
Yeah.
so the image that you see on the cover is what it might look like for something being born, some the molecules of something, the cells, right? Kind of multiplying and breaking off. And so built into the experience of life, there is this conceptual separation from life, right? We want to get in there, and the analytic mind, the rational mind, the logical mind wants to dissect everything. And I, I got to refer to moments in my life of irresponsible but intentional psychedelic use, or deep deep experiences with meditation where me, subject, and everything else, there was no longer a separation between them. And like there was no witnesser, there was just stuff, and there was just a plane. And I melted into that plane, and I realized that in order to try to talk about this in a way that brought people hopefully back to feeling like they were part of something, which is really what I want to do with this, is that to bring up the concept of identity and shifting what we identify with when we say, I'm me, because if I was being totally truthful and intellectually honest about the experiences that I've had with that ineffable area, I would say that I dance the dance of trying to be Anthony way too much, and don't dance the dance of what I know to be true, that I am, and you, and this computer and all this technology, as well as the plants and the everything, the rocks and the mantle and everything, that the earth is just one thing. And the universe in a lot of ways is just one thing. We are the ones that are trying to differentiate all of this and shift our identity into smaller and smaller little bits. Where am I? Am I here? Am I where? I'm somewhere in this, in my eyes. I'm
supposedly,
yeah. But like we just could look at this in a way. We could look at this in a totally different way. And I think that out of that, formulating maybe even a science, or formulating some sort of cultural like point of view that was us, and we sort of did it in some ways. We sort of did it when the astronauts, there's an effect of looking back at the earth that there's a word for it. I wish I could remember, but there's this effect that it has had on every astronaut that realizes that when you get far enough away from the planet and you look back at it, you're like, everything that I have ever thought of or cared about or freaked out about, or all that, is in this tiny little blue dot, floating on the very periphery of a gigantic collection of stars that's floating on the periphery of some bigger, ginormous like nebula somewhere in the middle of like who knows where. And like everything becomes different, and that's happening simultaneously as the arguments on social media. All of those things are happening simultaneously,
right.
And our ability to zoom out, I think, is our health.
Yeah, it's literally perspective, I think, not to bring it back again, but like one of the problems with social media is we're using like text and the written language, right, which is an old ass invention, especially like coming from like the singular person who is supposedly rational and reasonable, and then they're typing out these well, or maybe not so well constructed words. We're using like technology that doesn't fit into the technology we have now, or it's just like it's trying to play like a backwards compatible video game or something. Or I don't know if that's a good analogy, but
no, you're actually really good, because a lot of the initial concepts for this creation came from listening to Charles Eisenstein's books, because he talks about, I really love that guy. He's a for your listeners who aren't aware, he's a modern day philosopher, and also I mean, you could just say that he's a really well presented writer, and he has a great blog to follow, offers videos on YouTube. He has a satire that he wrote. I'm calling it a satire. I don't know if he calls it that, but it's called The Ascent of Humanity. And in this book, he talks about the technology of water, which I really think is awesome, because he differentiates that right now we're really having a great time with the technology of fire, right? And for example, a microprocessor is more efficient based on how much less jumps the little electrodes have to make between each element, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it creates heat. That's why our computers create heat. And really one of the biggest bottlenecks of our computing speed is our processor heat, right?
It'll fry the
So
board.
right. So at the end of the day, it's also size, but at the end of the day, we're using the technology of fire. We got all this electricity and it's just we've got all this stuff, right? And
Yeah.
we're tripping out on it. But he talks about that there's more than one way to determine what I mean, to define the word technology, I think takes a little bit of a nuanced approach. And so a lot of the themes that he went over in this book, you know, where he's talking about the ascent of humanity, really he talks about that our time is a convergence of crisis, and these crises are all happening simultaneously. And you know, every single piece of work that he's made since then seems to derive from this like core like new way of looking at the world that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And you know, so yeah, when you talk about like we're using abstracted language.
Right.
And what does that mean? So your listeners that might not know what the concept of abstraction is, it's when I say a word, right? I say tree. Tree conjures up an image of a tree in your mind, but the tree in nature has nothing to do with the word tree,
Right.
right?
It's like
Tree, the word.
that painting that I think the title is "This Is Not a Pipe," and it's a painting of a pipe. I can't remember who did it. I can't remember, but
I don't know if I'm familiar with that,
it's
but
I think it's. I don't know my art history well enough. Right now, at least, of
how
course.
dare you?
Yeah, of course. It's slipping me right now since I'm on the spot, but
Of course, that's how it always is.
it's a French painter because it was like, uh, you know, it was written in French. I'm not even going to try French right now. Way too nerve wracking. But yeah, and it's the same concept basically. It's like this is not a pipe. You could make a painting of a tree and do the same thing.
Well, I think that's the health. That's the health of visual art, for example. Instead of you saying tree, there's an abstraction level there, but it's a lot less
It's a lot
than
closer.
words.
Yeah.
Because when you're painting an image, our most immediate sense is obviously visual sense. So
Mhm.
when you paint something, you can say a million things, but you don't even have to say them. You don't
Right.
have to abstract them to the degree that language abstracts. And
Right.
with audio, I can play a happy chord and a quiet chord, and and a sad chord and a minor chord. I can play a bunch of minor chords together on purpose, so that once I get to that major chord, it sends the
You're like,
emotion even more.
yeah.
The tension and release is even more so than it would be you know, had I said a sentence. Because when I say a sentence to you, I'm hoping that you have the same connection to those words that I had,
Exactly.
and that that art speaks to you. But it's abstracted. There's the story of in the Iliad, I think, or whatever, or the Odyssey. I'm trying to remember this, but Thanos is having a conversation with Plato or something, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Don't write down words.
Oh
When
yeah.
you write down words, people forget. They don't know how to remember. If you write things down, this was back in the day when we were starting to etch things on stone tablets and things like that, and you know the tradition of reading to a group of people or storytelling
Mhm.
was this visceral thing. You were there, you saw the person's face, and they were like, and then he smote the dragon with, you know, like back in the day, that was like how we did things. And
Mhm.
story was this thing where we didn't need to abstract because the emotional component of saying words was still there. It's
Right.
watching the chest heave at a sad thing, or watching the eyes like get big when there's a scary thing, right?
Yeah.
That was our thing. And now it's like all these words, and then we associate this like ridiculous picture of a person that's the best possible representation of them.
Uh-huh.
Not honest at all. It's super hot, you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whatever. And like, and then we have all these abstracted words. And so we're so far away from what is
Yeah.
that we're like, you know, that we're all just like spitballing this like nonsense and really in a lot of ways fire technology
Mhm.
burning each other to a crisp, you know what I mean? And I really like that analogy because if because then it promotes every right move after that. Every right move is promoted
Yeah.
and encouraged. It encourages you to get with your buddies and be close, you know, and tell stories, and you know, it encourages the right stuff.
Yeah, the abstraction can be so far away from the experience, especially through the written word, unless it's a novel. I mean, there's always novels sometimes can take you places for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking about how like all the emotion is lost, right? All the tone of voice, the body language, all that stuff is lost, and we're just heaving, as you said, or as I guess Charles Eisenstein said, we're just kind of heaving these like abstracted balls of small mouth noises at each other. Uh, and it's not the real thing. I think that's a good point to make. That's a good, I guess, place to pivot to something else maybe. Speaking of hot things, modular synthesis seems really hot right now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's so old. The tech is so old.
Yeah.
Like our first synthesizers were made like a rapid super spitfire history of it is that back in the day, you know, the only way you could make a sound synthesis wise
Mm-hmm.
was taking a box that did one thing and another box that did another thing and plugging that box into this box.
Right.
Then you got enough boxes in a row that do very specific jobs. You finally get a sound that sounds somewhat akin to something real,
Yeah.
right? And that's the modular idea, but it has so many horrible caveats. You can't save anything. The moment you unplug it, it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You it's very expensive to do because the idea is that each little box does a job very well, the
Mm-hmm.
best you could possibly do that job. If the manufacturer is doing a good enough job, that little box should do its best job. But it's also very, in order to get that kind of like, that quality up, it's going to cost you a little bit. And it's this whole funny thing. Only in the 80s did I think it was Yamaha came out with the DX7 synthesizer that saved patches, right? So you could
Nice.
perform with your band. Depeche Mode could get on stage and do what they do because they could push a button and then another voice would come up. Anybody that's ever used a Casio keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
you can sit down and push the clavinet and funk out, or you
Right.
can
Yeah.
push the piano. That actually was, pretty recent technology if you think about it. Like
Interesting.
synthesizers were around since the late 50s, and actual being able to call up a patch, like that was in the 80s. So I mean, like imagine how much time we spent like, and also it was so expensive that, you couldn't afford
Right.
unless you were a college or the Beach Boys or something, you couldn't afford to have a modular synthesizer. And nowadays, like, the technology is getting cheaper and cheaper and it's getting more and more popular. Uh, I think it's because it's because of multiple things, but one of the things I think that's made it so popular is, that meme where it's like the goat farmer. Have you heard of
Oh yeah,
this
I'm
meme?
just a simple meme farmer.
No, I'm just a simple goat farmer
Yeah.
because yeah, and so I think that people want to make original sounds, and due to the nature of how original you can get with these like boxes, you know, uh, that's kind of like what has occurred. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, modular synthesis is a trip, man. It's crazy because on a consciousness level, we can kind of like dovetail into what we were talking about. You realize that you're just using voltage, right?
Right.
The way what travels down those wires is voltage, and voltage
Right.
can only do three things. It can go up in frequency, it can go down in frequency, or it can stay the same, and that's it. It can't do anything else. So when I'm sitting there, I remember like one day I had this full on like brain exploding like moment where I'm like, oh my God, that's how consciousness is.
Yeah.
And that's like frequencies, like colors, like everything that I am, everything that I feel and experience is either going up, down, or staying the same. And I had this like, I realized that like this little box is this like conscious being in some ways that's like, it's life. It's like, it's voltage. It's like, I experience my brain doing synapses in the same way
Yeah.
that I'm making music. And I think that's another reason why it's become so popular, because it's such a visceral, it's like playing an acoustic guitar in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like you're making electronic music, but instead of this computer and all this nonsense, you just have this like really immediate like thing right in front of you.
Nice. And so you are you still using that? I know you haven't played a live show with EarthCry in a long time, but is that? I think the last time I saw you perform, you had your modular with you,
It's
or
definitely
parts
a
of it.
constant companion.
Yeah.
I, I did a show recently where I found a log that was full of turkey tail mushrooms and slapped it on a table and did Amanda Sage's Vision Train gig,
Uh-huh.
and it was really fun. And and believe it or not, I was using plants for the longest time with these little electrodes,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a module called the Scion that takes voltage from plants and turns it into usable signals that you can scramble up, sounds with, right? So it's
Yeah.
totally crazy. But I didn't realize that mushrooms were a lot more reactive than plants. Like I have these house plants, and every once in a while I'd have to like wiggle the plant a little bit to get it to like think
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
to do something,
Yeah.
Whereas mushrooms, they're just constantly making voltage. And that's so mind blowing to me in so many ways. And so like, a friend of mine in town, Noah, has he joined TikTok apparently recently and had
Good for
the
him.
Scion module and
Oh,
has
nice.
blown up because people are so blown away at this phenomenon that mushrooms happen to be really great modular synthesizer players, I guess.
Well, man,
So that's
there there's got to be some way that we can, I don't want to say, I guess, exploit that technology in a positive way. I didn't want to use the word exploit. I couldn't think of anything else.
exploit is very human though,
Yeah, yeah.
it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, my mind kind of races too fast for me to catch up when you say like, yeah, mushrooms are thinking. It's like they're definitely closer to us in the old tree of life, right?
I mean, they
Than
were here.
plants,
Yeah,
I
they
guess.
were here way before plants.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty interesting. I think they were the only plant life in the first extinction period, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, that's that's
Or-
saying a lot. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, the fact that, and they're still apparently the biggest known like life form on Earth
mm,
is mycelium. And so I mean, I don't know that. Of course, it's very cliche and very simple to like sing the praises of mushrooms, but I mean,
yeah.
I think that we're going to discover that, and Paul Stamets has been on this tip for a long time. That we're going to discover that some aspect of what keeps human life going is going to probably be attributed to fungus.
Yeah.
And I find that it's really interesting that even when it comes to something so ridiculous as like making electronic music with a modular synthesizer, that they happen to make a lot of usable signals. I find that's just yet another
Right. It's
piece of
another
this like
pro.
fantastic puzzle.
Yeah. It's another pro on the side of mushrooms. There's
Right.
another checkbox on the pro side of mycelium.
Right.
Um, so yeah, speaking of mushrooms, do you do you have any habits before you step up to create something? Do you uh,
Are you
prime
asking me if I
yourself?
do a heroic dose before? I,
Sort of. What are some habits that keep you in a state of high performance, I guess?
Uh, well, I definitely mentioned the main one, and that's like being outside. In fact, like
Yeah.
the melodies. Somebody said something recently that legit made me cry and shout at my computer. Like they were like, we put out a song called Versicolor, which is our last Papadosio record was dedicated to mushrooms, and
Hmm.
Versicolor is one of the technical terms for turkey tail mushrooms. And hiking, I get ideas. I get boom, like it's like I hear melodies and I sing them into my phone usually. And
Hmm.
that was one of those songs. That was one of those like directly from taking a hike, had an idea. And okay, it could be two things. I want to say it's the magic of the forest, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to say that, but that's probably not as true as I am disconnected enough from technology long enough that I'm allowing the stream of ideas and health that comes from that to come through me. That would probably
Right.
be the less awesome and more truthful way to claim what's happening here. But that is sort of what occurs. And
Hmm.
someone wrote, and the reason I cried and shouted, someone wrote, "This song reminds me of hiking," and I was like, "Yeah!" Like I was like, "That is the top compliment I've ever had in my whole life." Like that is it. You have, like I can check out, man. Like I did it. You know what I mean? Like there we go. So yeah, I mean, I would say that the habit the best possible habit for me is leaving this technology behind for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it diminishes me. I think it diminishes to be stuck right here the whole time diminishes me. And so that's why I'm like drawn to the modular, because I mean, it's not my screen. It's not this backlit
Right.
bleeding my eyes out. Like it's not this like thing that's like chewing my brain in half. Like I you know, or an acoustic guitar out in the woods. I mean, but around a campfire with friends at the end of the day is always going to be for me a superior method to scoop the ideas out of my brain.
Nice.
And I think it also could be that I'm older, and that I do think that the younger generation is more able to do this. And I think that I want to instantly vilify TikTok, for example, and say that the attention span of these youth is, you know, blah, blah, blah. But really, at the end of the day, what if they're just better at tech than we are? What if five
Yeah.
generations down from now, when everyone's got some sort of cybernetic aspect to their body, which again is an earth technology, it's earth, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I want to vilify that instantly. But at the end of the day, if I really think about it, some asshole back in the day was like, I'm never going to use those newfangled shovels, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
My hands are
Exactly.
good enough. I can dig this with my hands, and I have more tactile. I can get in there with my finger, you know, like,
Yeah. Well, it goes back to
so
that meme you were talking about now I'm just a goat farmer because
I'm just a
I
goat farmer.
harvest their skins so that I can make drums, you know? It's the same thing. Like if you take it all the way back, like it seems like every new push in technology, there's a certain sector of the population that's going to be like, I don't know, seems dangerous. Like, 5G now is the new one, I
That's my
think.
favorite.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Using
my
computers
favorite.
and the internet to bitch about what the internet is becoming.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yo,
It's hilarious.
newsflash there, buddy. Hey, let me turn this light on because I'm going to disappear. It's getting
For
dark
sure,
here.
yeah. I've been noticing that.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back. So did you make are those I don't know what they're called, but I'm just gonna make up a word like
They're
sound deadening
acoustical. Yeah, they're acoustical treatment in here. They're bass traps. Actually, they might look like
bass
diffusers,
trap.
but they're just bass traps. Bass. They're they're bass traps with scatter plates on the front of them. I'm not really so sure how much the scatter plates actually do. They're
Hmm.
supposed to diffuse sound a little bit and kind of take high frequencies and make them go different directions. Honestly, homie Koali's got a lot better diffusion in his room because he built those kind of cool looking like geometric like.
They look, man, just funny little side note about that. They look like foam to me the first time I went in there and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh shit." And they're like straight up for anyone uh listening or watching, you can go watch the YouTube video I did with Quali. They're in the background and they look like these nice soft foamy things because they're like pieces of like 1 inch by 1 inch like wooden squared at the end sticks or pieces of wood. And but for some reason the way that they poke out at different levels, so they look like kind of curved. And my dumb ass was like, man, I like touching soft things, and then smacked it and hurt my hand. um Sorry to go off on that tangent, but did you
Why do I
did you make
destroy
those?
everything that I love?
Like my hand. Did you make those? That's what.
No, this
Okay.
I've made a couple bass traps in here, but those are made by a company in Atlanta called GIK,
Shouts.
which anyone who's like looking to, do a quick plug here. Anyone who's looking to acoustically treat their room, it's great to build traps, but when you buy from a company, they don't make commercially available things that absorb sound as well as actually a company that's making specific tools for bass trapping. So in
Mm,
this room I have a lot of GIK stuff, and I also have some OC703 bass traps that I've built myself.
nice.
I kind of go back and forth. This is not the most ideal room, but nobody's room is ideal. But this is the biggest room I've
Mm,
ever been in thus far, which another thing to know is that the bigger the room, the better you're going to get frequency response wise, because there's less of the room involved in what you're hearing. Um, but yeah, it's a little
interesting.
nerdy side note. But let me show you this. This is pretty interesting.
Okay. Ah, very nice.
I had to still make it into the bathroom somehow. So I
Yeah.
put
Didn't want to
we
trap yourself in completely.
yeah. So I had to figure that out. But
Nice. Um, so yeah, you were kind of just dropping a little bit of acoustical treatment knowledge there. Let's talk about seed to stage for a little bit. I
sure.
watched some of those videos just to kind of get a feel for them. Of course, playing guitar myself and having not used Ableton in 12 years or something now, um, I looked at how to make a good guitar tone uh, through Ableton with Anthony, and it was great, man. I actually learned a lot, and I mean, just from watching that, I watched maybe about half the video. I learned, I mean, you can take that to an actual rig too. So very helpful. Congratulations on that. Um, did you have anyone directly teaching you ever? Like, I mean, take it all the way back to any kind of mentor you've ever had. Did you have anyone that like stuck out who taught you things about music?
uh Not really, and I really
Yeah.
wish that I would have because I watch my heroes, and I know that learning some of these things from a young age would really help. Like Rob Campa from Dopapod is one of the most amazing musicians I've ever met,
Hmm.
and he got a relatively professional education in music, and here I am still learning about, little micro bits of music theory and things like that. But my guitar this is funny. My guitar teacher, the first one I had, I he was very Christian, so he wouldn't teach me like the songs I wanted. I was like, "Yeah, can you teach me like Smells Like Teen Spirit?" And he'd be like, "That's secular music." And then the second guy was even worse. He would teach me like riffs, and then he would solo over them, and I was just his backing track. I realized, and so I didn't have a good experience with music. And then in
Yeah.
school, I was the guitar player in the jazz band,
Uh huh.
and I get like, play a, B flat, flat five, 13, add whatever. And I would, see his huge chord names and be like, "Hey, music instructor, how do I play this?" And he was like, "Just play the root note if you don't know." And I'm like,
For
"What?
real?
Like, teach me. Like, I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
know how
Yeah.
to do this." So no one taught me. And so I got real frustrated. I never went to college, and I knew what I wanted to do with myself. And so I just had to like figure it out. And I found myself in a basement. All these girls were living in this house in Athens. I found they allowed me to live in their basement in this photo development room for like, I think it was like $150 a month.
Nice.
It was essentially like a closet. There was no real walking space, and there were two shelves on either side. And I had a PC, and I
Yeah.
I downloaded Ableton 5 Live 5 in 2005, and
Oh wow.
I was using Fruity Loops,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is a pretty hilarious, awesome, and it's become something incredible now. I can't even
Has it?
believe how far that software has come. Yeah, there's producers that only use it now, and it's like
For
they're making
real? Oh,
insane music.
cool.
But anyway, long story short, like I kind of figured it all out down there, like, eating like weird brownies and like locking myself in that room, and I figured out like sort of some stuff, and I got so like confident with it that like I started to just record the band's records just using that.
Hmm.
And it was really weird. At the time, it was like the worst software ever. It crashed all the time. Anyone who's used Ableton before Live 8, for example, knows
That's
that
the
you couldn't
last one
even
I
get
I
through,
looked at. Was tough.
right? You
Yeah.
you couldn't get through like an hour of using it without it crashing back in the day. And now it's become this amazing, incredible thing. And yeah, I mean, what's going on right now is I had to learn how to pivot.
Hmm.
Basically,
Right.
in order to stay afloat. It's really sad. A lot of my friends are on, they're on unemployment. They don't have any tours set up. Venues are closing down left and right. And I was like, I see this happening real quick. I got up here and I was like, all right, Melissa, like I have to film a course because there's no other way. I got to figure out how to pivot. So what I did is I leveraged my, YouTube presence, which I think is like 48,000 fans at this point, some crazy amount, because
Nice.
I guess a live musician hasn't got on there and talked about stuff, so that's why I think it's worked out for me.
Hmm.
But I was like, yo, I got these courses now, so I was able to like somewhat get some. I got a lot more students than I would normally be able to have.
Yeah.
And to bring up quality one more time, I was supposed to have done a live school with him there in Denver, and I had two because the success of my in-person school has gone so well that I was able to expand it to multiple cities. My original goal was to do like 6
A
cities
tour.
all across America, and it would have been this amazing thing. But
Yeah.
here we are, and it's all worked out. So I mean, if any of your listeners are interested in this, I have Ableton courses that I'm teaching, and I can divulge a lot of information through them, and they're basically just like me talking to you about like songwriting and composition or mixing with the software and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm obviously always going to be putting out stuff on YouTube, but
Nice.
yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Sweet. Well, I have a quick question. So I've got my Zoom H6 here. Um, I went out and bought a 3.5 millimeter to XLR, so that's how we're hearing you right now.
Nice.
But I really wanted to use it as like an actual audio interface and record directly into GarageBand. And it said that I could use battery power to get rid of this really, really awful, like, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, like this sound that it makes because it's like pulling power from the computer, I think. And the batteries died real quick. So I don't know what my question was, but do you know a
How do
workaround
you
for that?
navigate that? Well,
Yeah, yeah.
check this out. I actually have the your solution in my hand. Uh, you'll notice that there are USB little devices that one of the sides
Oh,
will provide the power, the other will provide the data connection. What happens with some USB devices is that there's a ground loop. That's what you're hearing. That
yeah.
occurs when you are plugging one device in and it's supplying the power.
Right.
What you can also do is unplug your computer. It'll likely go away.
Well,
But
here's the
computer would
problem
die.
with that. I have an old ass computer. Really, that's the I was the other day just real quick. I was like cycling between getting this this XLR to 3.5 inch and just getting a new computer because initially I was using like the eighth inch or the quarter inch like adapter to put it on. I know this is getting really techy for anyone still listening. Thank you. Um, and so I was literally like, all right, do I go and buy this like $16 like cable or do I just get a new computer? Like what should I do? Um, yeah, I don't know. That's just something interesting. But what that USB thing, very cool. I'm gonna have to check that
So check
out.
it out. Your interface is there that little Zoom
Yeah, yeah.
recorder for your listeners that aren't aware. Zoom makes
Here,
a bunch of field recorders,
better not.
and anyone who's familiar with like the work of like EarthCry or whatever, like a lot of his music is influenced by what he finds out in the world with his little recorder, right? So
Yeah,
these are really great pieces of technology, but used as an audio interface is kind of like the last. That's like an afterthought. Oh, you can also do this.
right, right.
Getting there are really really cheap interfaces that you can get that are
Mm-hmm.
really inexpensive and they won't do that. So most
Oh, okay.
like the Sapphire series, they're really cheap.
I
You should look into that
I did
because
have like a old M audio laying around somewhere actually.
likely that's not supported anymore.
Yeah,
But
yeah, totally.
you know how it goes.
Um, but anyway,
Anyway,
man. One last question, and we'll wrap it up. Um, what else do you want from your music career? You have a band, a successful band. You have a successful solo project, and you're teaching. Is there anywhere or anything else that you're interested in, or where do you go from here?
I just don't know what else to do. And again, like
Yeah,
I feel kind of I should learn how to navigate this. I think that a growth edge for me is to learn how to be okay without having to make art because I think that that would be insulating myself for if like shit hits the fan and I gotta like,
like really
like
hits the fan.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like I gotta like survive or whatever. Like it's this weird, and it's not like I would ever have to not sing or play a guitar or something. It's more just like this. I don't know. I think that if I wanted anything out of music, it would be that it would continue to take care of me the way that it has.
right.
And it's been a big leap of faith, as I'm sure it's the same way with you and those paints. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
for
they
sure.
really they take care of you in a way that you can't even describe.
Right.
And without them, it's almost like being a lover who's afraid of being alone. It's like the same, it's the same feeling that I have when I consider what my life would be without music. And so I guess if I wanted anything from music, it would be like, don't go anywhere, baby. Like, please,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
love
Very
me
nice.
still. Like, I I hope that I'm serving it as well as I intend to, at least.
Nice. Well, okay, I lied. One last question. Um, if you could, if you could give a young musician or producer coming up, or or say yourself like 15 years ago, any advice, what would you give them?
Hmm. Uh, Man, if I could give myself advice
Hmm.
15 years ago, it would be not to second guess myself so much. I spent most of my time, I think, spinning my wheels, freaking out about whether or not something would be well accepted, and it slowed me up. But I think that if I could say something to anyone wanting to do this now, it would be that I think that you have to, in some ways, embrace technology and still, but at the same time, learn how to let it go and learn how to strike a healthy balance, because technology is obviously how it's the vehicle upon which people discover you nowadays. And
Right.
without it, there is no realistic way to expect a miracle.
Right.
And so, like, at the end of the day, developing healthy habits early is super important for any artist, visual or otherwise.
Right.
uh, you know, it's got to be this thing where you don't go in for 10 hours and do the same thing the next day and expect yourself to feel okay, because you're not. And you have to learn to enjoy it. You have to enjoy what you do, and you have to love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, try to figure out why. Are you trying to please everybody, or are you actually expressing yourself in a way that's honest and sincere? Like, and I think that if you can do that, it'll take you really, really far. I mean, people really react well to, what do you call it, authenticity.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like when like when you've made like a painting from your heart, you can see the shares and the all that other stuff, because like it came from something real. That's all anybody wants, is just something real. That's
Right.
what they want. So if you can give that to them, you know, and you give yourself a gift, really.
Right.
you know?
Right. Well, that's a beautiful place to end, man. Um, thanks so much. Where can people find you? Where do you want to point them right now? Uh,
So for now, earthcry.net
hmm.
is at this point finally being updated with kind of like a experience of identity mitosis.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a place where you can watch all the episodes, and I'm gonna kind of add some like extra goodies there. So if I could get anybody to do anything, it would be to kick back with your best friend, your lover, whatever, in this cold time,
Hmm.
and just watch the series. It's only an hour long. The whole thing is an hour long altogether. The final episode, this will probably be out after the final episode, but after the 18th, it's all going to be available to watch from start to finish. If you play the first episode, it goes through all of them as playlists do on YouTube. So just give it a watch, if anything, because I want to continue this conversation around what it means to identify with the planet. I
Yeah.
think it's a healthy thing for us all to do. And I mean, even if what you want to leave is criticism, I would
Hmm.
much rather be talking about this than to not talk about this.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, man. I really
Thank
appreciate you,
you.
and thank you everyone for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Much
Peace.
love, y'all.
Peace. Thanks again for checking out another episode, and thank you, Anthony, for coming on and sharing some insight and some perspective with us all. do yourself a favor and head over to earthcry.net to check out all of Identity Mitosis. Great tunes, great storytelling, great representation of panpsychism. Gaia speaking to an AI in the future. Who would have thought it? Well, Anthony did, and I'm stoked that that idea is out there. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. That helps tremendously getting it in front of other people's eyes and ears organically through the Apple algorithm, the Apple Podcast algorithm. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know what you thought. Still have t-shirts and hoodies available at Moteef, moteefe.com/artsyaf. And I just ordered myself an RTAF hoodie. So next time I do a video, I'm going to wear it. If you want to support the podcast, that's the best way to do it for right now. Be on the lookout for some Patreonage in the future. And I appreciate your support and your attention. Y'all are amazing. And I will catch you next time. Peace.
Thank you.